did. Now go ahead, say something.
Bro, I knew it.
Are we? And I hope I don't see this on no outtake, Tony.
You will. Bello, you recording an album?
No.
He in the studio.
Tiffany, you okay?
Yes, thank you.
I can't see you though.
She's
Oh, you
cutting her
can't?
hair. She just blocked herself off so we don't see her doing it.
That's why we
Well,
love it.
that's how-
Yeah, I mean,
Lola's back. Everybody say hi to Lola. She gets
Lola. You've always seen me. I said it's great to see you.
I didn't realize he was that cute. Some people are cuter in the dark, honey. You cuter in the daytime. We can see you.
Billy.
Okay, kids, let's get this party started because Bello has a bedtime. So,
Hi, I'm Riley Knoxx.
I'm Tiffany Thomas.
I'm Shaina Taylor.
My name is Bello Youngfellow.
Greetings, I'm Byron Garrett, and this is We Speak. Good evening and welcome back to another episode of We Speak. Certainly excited to be back with everyone. Welcome back, Riley. Good to see you this week.
It's good to be back.
Outstanding. And Tiffany Thomas, how are you doing tonight?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Outstanding. And Shaina, are you still celebrating your birthday? Either way, welcome back to the show.
It's a party. Yes, I am. Thank you.
And representing the millennials tonight, we got a very special guest with us. Good to see you, Bello the Youngfellow. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to see all of you too.
Outstanding. So we're going to get into the messages for tonight. You know, a lot has been covered over the last few weeks as we've been reaching you from the Zoom platform. Our producer decided this week we wouldn't get a full break from all this happening in terms of the social unrest. If you think about it, coronavirus kind of shut us down for a period of time, and the social unrest and civil engagement movement certainly brought us up in a different way. But we're going to go in a different direction this week. There's a lot of stuff to cover, so we're going to get into the show. Anybody realize or anybody recall that we're officially in summer? Like, can you actually believe that literally 6 months from today, from our taping time frame, will be Christmas? I want you to think about that. Like, half of the year is already gone. But here we are tonight. Let's start off with a sweet story that our producer found on Facebook. A person wrote about an experience he had at a gas station. Specifically, they said, I have no idea who this little boy or this woman are. The little boy didn't even notice or say anything to the woman. He was in line paying for his mother's gas when all of a sudden, the lady told him to kindly put his money away. She told him to pick up a snack and paid for the gas. He then walked out smiling from ear to ear, as any little kid would. And when the cashier asked her why she did that, she told him, with all that is going on in the world, I just wanted to make him smile. I wanted to touch his heart, she said. So in this day and age, we've seen so many people of different races stand and unite for the better. And even though we are still a long way from where we all need to be, this gave her hope for a better future. So our producer wanted to put a smile on everybody's face, but I'm curious what you think about that. Do you think there's still good Samaritans in the world who are just looking to do a good deed? What do you think, Shane? Do you think she was well-intended?
Yeah, it's always good to see people paying it forward, especially during times like this when we see so many different videos and so many versions of just the opposite. You know what? That gives me something to do this week. I challenge myself and I challenge you guys all to do something great this weekend as well, so we can talk about it next week.
All right, challenge accepted. Riley, what do you think? Have you seen or experienced things like that where somebody else does something on behalf, no other reason other than to put some hope and brightness in the world?
I think it's very important right now with everything that's going on in the world. And, you know, we see so many examples over and over again with the Karens and with the protests and, you know, and the president of the United States doing so much crap that it's nice to see something that is, you know, good Samaritans. There's still great people out there, you know, when we talk about, you know, people with discrimination and racism and all these things we've been seeing in these very loud, blatant racist, it's important to remember that there are people that are still allies and there's still really good people in the world that are just, you know, great people for no reason at all without wanting to anything in return.
Very well said. And I'm curious, Bello, so since you represent the millennials officially from a demographic, though Riley also falls in the category we must acknowledge, All
Yes.
of that glam also equals millennial. Yes, it does. Bello, I'm curious, what's your take on it? Because obviously young people are leading this movement across the world, not just in the country. But when you see and hear something like this particular story, how does it make you feel, or what do you think? Do you think there's hope?
I think that's a great question. It definitely does give me some hope. I know there's a long way that our country and our society has to go. But I think people like that give me a good sense of faith in humanity, because before, with the whole George Floyd and everything else going on in the world, I was sort of losing faith, because it's been years since Trayvon Martin, and yet we're still making the same mistakes over and over and over again. But it's good to see people like that are still alive, doing well, and still paying it forward to see society do better for itself.
Now, Tiffany, we know you always weigh in on the political side, so I got to ask you. I mean, and maybe we could use some of this same ingenuity and hope and just feel good, the random acts of kindness. Maybe we could use it on the ill, but I'm curious what your thoughts are from that perspective.
I think even small acts of kindness and generosity can go a long way in terms of just brightening up someone's day. So this little boy probably will go to his mother and say, you know, I was able to save these dollars for the gas, and she was really kind, and she will be able to, as well as all of us should, push that kindness forward and give benefits to those who around us who need emotional, financial, or psychological support.
Well, I'll tell you what, if somebody did that and I was that little boy, I wouldn't tell my mama. I would pocket that money in a heartbeat. Like, yeah, that gas was $32. That's a whole lot of now laters and blow pops. I appreciate that. You know, on our show last week, we also talked about the fact that there is a new Bachelor. So the actual show, The Bachelor, has a Black gentleman. But also this week, a former casting producer for the show spoke out about her experience. She had already talked with executives several years back. And of course, she said the hiring of Matt James, who is the new Bachelor, is basically a Band-Aid. Her name is Jazzy Collins, who's the former producer for the show. She had worked on the show for 5 seasons, but she said the only women of color, and Shaina, I think you pointed this out last week, the only women of color that were picked to be in the running had to have weaves or chemically straightened hair, and they were ethnically ambiguous, or they were not even going to be considered. If they were too Black, had afros, braids, dreadlocks, they weren't even given a chance to because of the white standard of beauty for the show. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Shaina, I know you already have a perspective.
They turned me down. They told me I can't be on there. See what I'm saying? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, that doesn't surprise me. It reminds me, I remember years ago when the Disney store opened up their store locations, and they were basically telling people, they were telling applicants that you had to have the all-American look in order to work in the store. Now, mind you, they put the store in the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza in LA, which was off Crenshaw Boulevard. So it's like, how many people are going to have the American look? Because they were very specific about no French braids, no Afro styles, no natural hairstyles. It's like there is just this overall idea of what beauty looks like in this country, and it's their version of it, and it oftentimes does not include us, other than them wanting to take our attributes and put them on themselves. So the full nose and the full lips and the big butts and the big boobs are great when it's on somebody that looks Euro. I ain't going with that.
Tiffany Thomas, I am curious what you think about that. So this notion that there is a white standard of beauty that shows historically has subscribed to, do you think there's going to be a shift now in pop culture, that there is now a demand for more diversity?
This is just reflective of the entire corporate America culture. It's no different. It's no different than what Gabrielle Union has been saying. It's no different than these white girls that are leaving these biracial cartoon characters that came up today. So there were 2 white ladies who were cast as biracial characters in 2 separate cartoons that have come out on either Twitter or Instagram, one of the 2, basically saying that they were going to step back from their position. Right. And the real question needs to be, instead of thank you, white lady, for stepping aside in order to promote a Black woman, the real question needs to be, casting director, why didn't you hire some sisters to begin with? But, you know, we'll let that fly.
Because they don't want their cartoon characters to be like, girl, you gonna eat your fat chicken? Like,
but they were black characters. That's what the problem is.
They were
Black
already-
yeah, but they don't want the character to sound. They want the character to sound like that black Disney princess. Like,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
remember
all right.
they were
Good luck with
complaining, and she was supposed to be from New Orleans. Like, she was supposed to be in the Bayou, but they were complaining that she had an accent, and it's like, it's in the Bayou.
Of course, you're gonna have
Everybody
an
sounds
accent.
like that in New Orleans. Yeah.
It's a cycle, and it's a story that will continue on moving forward. So, no, the idea that Black women or women of color, in particular Black women, have to ascribe to these notions of quote unquote beauty that have nothing to do with us, unless, like Shaina said, it's the physical, those particular physical aspects, is just the way it is.
And I'm curious, Riley, of course, you work in the entertainment space. Do you think there is a perceived white standard of beauty that folks are supposed to ascribe?
Let's just say this. The Bachelor is just not our show. I don't think that this late in the game that it is, to me, it's like too little too late. It's like, okay, so you guys, but that's still not going to get me to watch because it's just not my type of show, and I think there absolutely is. We definitely know that there is a standard to how you're supposed to look to have universal appeal or to cross over, whatever, no matter what space you may be in. I'm in the entertainment industry. I am a light-skinned woman with light-colored hair, and it's sometimes it's so interesting to me because in the past you have seen people who look like Beyonce or look like Tyra Banks on the cover of magazines. But then, we've started to see a shift in people like Lupita Nyong'o, who are it just goes to show you that there is no one standard of beauty. But I would like to know what is going to happen when it is no longer trendy to be on the Black side. Meaning, right now it seems a little bit trendy that everybody's, on, if you're not behind this cause and you're going to get canceled, so let me hop on this train and let me, be very pro-Black right now. But is that going to fizzle out, or are we going to continue to have equality? Because that's what we've been fighting for many, 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 many years, hundreds of years. But I'm wondering, what is it going to look like, 2 years from now? Are we still going to have people that are, pushing, for there to be more equal, looks on TV in every single part of it, not just diversity hires, but it just becomes the standard and not just a thing of like, we're making it like, oh, well, let's just hire someone Black, let's get so we let people know that we're on the right side of history. When you want to be on the right side of history, but you also want to make sure that it is, what you truly believe and what you really, and because it's also right, but not just this fizzles out once everybody's done protesting and once everybody's done marching and everybody's done, posting on Instagram. What is it going to look like in 2 and 3 and 4 years from now? Are we going to go back to, the very uneven scale of diversity?
Yeah, and I wonder about that because, and I'm coming to you in just a second, Bello. It's interesting to me because this particular show, they made this announcement. We shared this last week. They made this announcement now about The Bachelor and the fact that he is a brother. But the reality is it's not even going to air until January of next year. So I'm wondering if these companies just feel the need to try to absolve themselves and make a rush to statement the same way some folks would make a rush to judgment. But I'm curious, Bello, what's your thought? If you were being cast for the show, would you really care about who's going to be the contestants? Or should it even make a difference in this day and age?
Like, I'm being cast like I'm the Bachelor, like I'm the guy.
Yeah.
Like I'm like the belle of the ball. Like, all right, I'm about to like get all this attention. But I mean, overall, I think the whole I agree with each and every one of you, and I honestly think Riley hit it like on the nose when it comes to it's being trendy right now. Like, I'm a filmmaker right now, and I know that in the entertainment industry, being Black is sort of cool at this point. But honestly, what happens when like it's moving on to a new culture, whether what's next, Asian is going to be cool, or maybe Indian or something else. Like, it's almost as if Hollywood just wants to keep taking other people's races and make it trendy without actually addressing the real problem. And I don't know if you guys know, but if you ever heard of I'm pretty sure you all heard of it before. You know what I'm saying? Like you ever heard of The Little Mermaid? You know that movie, The Mermaid. I know. Yeah, the new mermaid is gonna be black. It's gonna be a black woman with dreads. Yeah, and a lot of people are saying that that's a great thing. I personally think that that's not really the best thing, and I'm gonna explain it like this. Really what Hollywood is doing is simply just taking white characters like the Little Mermaid and just shading them in black. And when you look at a creative standpoint, a producer standpoint, you see that as being a disservice to the black community, because what we're asking for is we're asking for authentic black stories. We're asking for actual authentic black characters that have actual authentic black experiences. You just taking a already made white character and just shading them black is doing us a disservice, because you're not creating another authentic story. You're just creating the same story, but this time they're black. And that's not fair to us. And Hollywood has been doing this for years. It's only now just getting the attention it deserves because social media, things like Twitter, are finally blowing up and bringing this awareness. I mean, just to tie it all in, I completely agree with all of you. I really think this is just another shady way for Hollywood to fulfill some diversity quota. These companies don't really care about diversity. They just want to make sure they're on the right side of history so they don't get canceled. So yeah, it's terrible.
Well, that's quite insightful, and I appreciate that, not only from your perspective, but also putting on that hat of a filmmaker and saying, what is the qualified role that we actually should get, as opposed to just coloring our character, and mentioning shifts that we see in Hollywood. You know, Riley, a couple weeks ago, we talked about your favorite movie. So we talked about Gone with the Wind, and Queen Latifah. I don't know if you saw this, but Queen Latifah has come out because, of course, they have there's a movement to cancel and take Gone with the Wind out of the collection for HBO Max. But actress and rapper Queen Latifah came out and said Gone with the Wind should have been gone. And primarily because not only it's just the depiction of Black people and the stereotypes, and we discussed, and Riley mentioned, you know, Hattie B. McDaniel was the first African-American female to actually win an Academy Award. But one of the things we didn't talk about, and I'm curious to get you all's perspective, was not only did she win the award, but she wasn't allowed to actually be seated in the public area for the show, nor was she able to actually write her own speech. So I don't know, Riley, do you think, given the way the tide has shifted, do we think, and do you feel the same way about the film now, as you said a couple weeks ago, now that more people are uncovering?
Well, you know, whether you know it or not, I'm an old Hollywood historian. And it's very interesting that Queen Latifah is saying that, considering Queen Latifah also played Hattie McDaniels in the movie, this miniseries Hollywood on Netflix. And my point in all of this was, you cannot rewrite history. What you can do is learn from history, and you cannot make those mistakes going forward. But when you erase something completely, you take every element away from it. Meaning, this woman was the first Black woman to ever win an Oscar. So are we taking that away from her? And her performance was damn good. It's freaking amazing. And so my point in all of this is, yes, going forward, those kinds of movies shouldn't be made. But the movie was made in 1938. And people need to understand, for people like, you know, that are in the age group as Bello, I don't know how much you know about this movie, but you won't know anything about it if we take it away. You need to know that back in 1938, it was not okay for it had not been done yet. And back then it was okay to make movies like that. But now in 2020, it's not okay to make movies like that. And you learn from the history of it. It's not just about the entertainment. It's about the history of all of it. And when you take one element away, you take everything away. So now you're taking away, when you take that movie away, even though the movie is problematic, or there's parts of the movie that are problematic, you're also taking away the experience for some young little Black girl who needs to know that it wasn't always possible. And this is the person who would open the door for it to be possible to win, like for Halle Berry to win an Oscar. You know what I mean?
No, you're right, because I think what other people don't realize, and I'm glad you mentioned that point, even though Hattie B. McDaniels was quite familiar with the era and the time and the setting, I mean, she was acting in that particular character and did an amazing job, because if you've heard any of her speeches or commentary, I mean, she is highly educated, super articulate, like almost the polar opposite of the character. I'm like, she had to do an amazing job to put herself in that position. I'm curious, Shaina, what's your thought? I mean, do you think, as it relates to Gone with the Wind, Shaina, what's your thought about this controversy?
It's a movie. It's fiction. And like every other fiction, it's there for an entertainment value. And I don't even think that we should stop making films like that. I mean, it was a time, it was an era, because if you take away films like that kind of depicted what was going on, it's almost like we would have to erase blaxploitation films, because they didn't show us in a kind light. They didn't make us look good. We were making those films because we were really making fun of ourselves and fun of what was going on. And it was the most that they would let us do at that time. And I would hate to see that era go away too.
Yeah, because we also had Roots, which came out. We've also had The Amazing Color Purple. I'm pretty sure Oprah is not Miss Sophia, but she played the hell out of that role. And I know Whoopi Goldberg is not Miss Celie by any stretch. However, that's an interesting perspective. And I want to get to Bello, but I also want to get to your thoughts, Tiffany, before we move on.
It's always been problematic the way that this country has treated, responded to, looked at, and if Black women, and in particular, dark-skinned Black women. And I do believe that these Black women that have won Academy Awards have won them in potentially problematic films, like Halle Berry was a prostitute or whatever.
Girl, Whoopi Goldberg was funny as hell in Ghost. She was so good. Oh, she was so good in Ghost.
She was very good in Ghost.
But she was a one-off.
She was certainly Ghost.
Yeah, she was a one-off.
You know, she was very good in Ghost. I'm not taking that away.
Interesting perspective. And what do you think, Bello? Since you are in the industry and you are a filmmaker. Granted, it is almost 100 years old, Tiffany. I'm curious what your thought is when you have a titan in the industry like Queen Latifah on one end saying this movie should definitely be gone, it shouldn't be up for view. But then Riley raises the point. Do you really erase history? And do you try to rewrite it? Or do you learn from it and figure out how you move forward so that new generations of filmmakers, casting directors, and folks like yourself are able to help shaft and create a different narrative?
So unfortunately, I have not seen the film. I'm so sorry, you guys. I was born way too late. On behalf of every millennial.
We all were, just to be clear.
Oh, Riley, don't go. Come back.
No. I didn't go. Here you go.
Okay.
Right here.
Thank you.
Here's the thing. I know you say you've never. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Bello. I know you say you've never seen it, also, right?
I've never seen it.
I'm trying to figure out what it was, and maybe our producer could chime in and help me out. What it is that they were saying that was wrong with the way. I think because it depicted happy slaves, but those slaves were telling them off. Like they told those white people off. Like they were like Mammy had a voice. Tiffany, I would actually want you to see the movie just so you can tell me what you think about what they were saying. Okay. Right. So
yeah,
what was it that was I understand, just like there have been so many movies where there were slaves in movies, what exactly were they saying that was worse about this one than it was than other movies? I'm really not understanding.
I don't even think that there was anything that was worse. I just think that it is such an acclaimed film, and it's one of the ones that's in heavy rotation, and they just want to take it out of heavy rotation or put some type of a disclaimer on it that says, oh, we don't support this behavior, but because it's still making money.
But watch the movie anyway.
Well, but the reality, I think, to your point, Shaina and Riley, I think where you're headed is, if you think about the time period, you're talking about the 1930s. We're not that far removed from the late 1800s and Reconstruction. So it's not as if it was out of time or out of sync. It's not as if a white director and producer said, this is the only way to portray a Black person is using these stereotypes or a character from a minstrel show. But the reality is that was a true snapshot and period of time in the southeast of this country. None of us want to relive it, but we do know there is a faction in this society that wants to hold on to it, which is these other arguments. I think Riley makes probably the most compelling point. Like, how do you, and that's, I think, where people, I'm not white, obviously, but I think white people grapple with this issue of, are you really trying to erase our history, or can we say that we learn from it, pay homage, whether that's in a museum or wherever it should be, and actually move forward?
But the question is, are they learning from it?
It's not just history, because we got the first Black woman to win an Oscar, and by the way, in my opinion, was the best character in the movie because that's if the one scene that she won for, if you see that scene, Shaina, you know what I'm talking about. It was incredible. Like if you're not crying when you see that scene, it's just like it's insane. But it's not. This movie was made by white people, but it's not just white history. Our history is in there too because Hattie is in the movie and she won an Oscar. That's part of our history also.
That's right.
So wait, Riley, you saw the movie, right?
Saw the movie. I own the 50th anniversary edition. It's my favorite.
Of course. And so in the film, they were depicting slaves that were actually content with slavery.
Well, yeah, they were
happy with it. They were happy to be in bondage.
Her character had a very quick wit, smart mouth, kind of like she ran everything. That's the way she was. Yeah.
So it's not like she walked around, oh yes, master, I'm just glad to be here to be a slave. Her role, character was very much, I understand where I sit, but at the same time frame, I'm still a human. You're not gonna act that way. So Miss Scarlett, you need to get your shit together. Like, let's be clear. I know that I'm not completely free, but at the same time frame, I'm still standing in front of you. And I think her sass.
Scarlett didn't treat her bad. Scarlett treated her like she was like her mother.
I think, I mean, again, I haven't seen the film, but based off of what Riley has told me, I think for my own, if I can come up with my own opinion right now, I think I would side with Riley just because I think the film is a piece of our history. And if it does depict slavery and what it was back then, even though it may not be completely accurate, but it does showcase that we were in bondage, we didn't have any freedom. And it does give power to the actress who, I don't know her name, but she was like very sassy and stuff like that. If it gives her any power. Of course, yeah. If it does depict us, I just want to make sure the information of history is correct and it portrays slavery for what it was, inhumane and disgusting. I don't want if the film was depicting slaves all happy and just jiving and happy, like yes, boss, yes, master man. Like if it does do that, then hell no, I don't want that movie to be ever seen ever again.
Because it wasn't a minstrel show, like that period of time is
either. It's not a movie about slaves. It's
about something else though. Slavery is in it, right? Yeah. Okay, I know that much. I know it was 100% about slavery. Just slavery was in it at that time.
It was depicted. Yeah.
I just don't want slavery to be depicted as like a great thing. It was. That was not how it is.
So in that vein, as we think about shifts and changes in society, you may have seen this week, NASCAR announced that Brandon Thompson, a black man, will be their new vice president of diversity and inclusion, which is a brand new position that they have created. And Mr. Thompson's responsible for leading strategies to help enhance diversity across the board at NASCAR and giving access and opportunities to women and minorities at the company, which will definitely be needed because, as we talked about last week, Bubba Wallace has done his Black Lives Matter car, but also we found out last week that one of the pit crew members discovered a noose hanging in his very pit spot where his car was parked. And so I'm curious if you think in this particular day and age, the fact that you find a noose, which some people have said, no, it's just a knot to pull down the garage door. But if you look at it, it's tied just like a noose, but it's hanging in the garage stall. Do you think hiring him is just another Band-Aid that NASCAR is trying to CYA, or what's your perspective? And we'll start with you, Shaina.
So I actually, I applaud NASCAR for what they're doing. I mean, Band-Aid as such, but the fact that they've made moves to completely remove the Confederate flags speaks volumes, because we're not watching NASCAR. NASCAR is not there for us. We are not their target demographic on any level. For all intents and purposes, Bubba ain't got no business being there for real. He should just, but the funniest thing is that they have gone above and beyond to alienate their target audience for the sake of supporting one person. And I can't think of any other sport that would even go out on a limb and do something. Like if you look at the NFL, they were suspending players and fining players that wanted to take a knee and take a stand. So, and that's a black sport that has majority black players, but NASCAR has one. So they've changed rules for millions for one person. So it definitely wasn't about the money. Wasn't about the money and covering their behinds, because they're going to lose a lot of money by doing it.
I don't know. I'm going to come to you, Bello. I'm curious, though, because I want to add some food for thought. Do we really think NASCAR is just doing it for the right reason? Or do we think that NASCAR is starting to look at the demographics and they realize if you project 10 years out, if they are not changing their customer base now, they're not going to have a client a decade from now.
Oh no, for sure. Because they're putting this little political stunt right now, they're definitely going to lose their fan base, because now their fan base, which by the way is 100% Confederate loving, racist white folk, are going
Not 100%.
95%. Then, if that makes you feel better. But still,
The majority.
they're seeing that that NASCAR is taking a stand against racism. But again, NASCAR is a business. NASCAR has a bottom line. If that bottom line is not met, NASCAR goes out of business. And I say this all the time to all my friends. Like, whenever a company does some diversity thing, like Byron, you just told me that they just created that diversity job.
They
Right.
just
It's
created
brand
it
new.
because there's zero diversity.
It's 2020 and they just created one. No, this is a political stunt. They realize that if they don't adapt to the times, they're going to lose their audience or they're going to lose money. But like, for real, Black people don't watch NASCAR in the first place. So it's like, I don't even know why they did this. All they need to, if you ask me, if I was NASCAR, I would not, no disrespect, I would not create a diversity. That's just out of pocket. That just makes no sense. That's just a political stunt. That's obvious. I would simply just issue a statement saying we condemn racism, we condemn discrimination, and we condemn violence against people of color. And that's it. Creating a whole job position. Like, my man's who's inside that job position probably has no job responsibility, because his job is what? To bring more Black people into NASCAR? That
Probably. Minority contractors, vendors.
I mean, that's what diversity is about.
I would love to see that. I would love to see more Black and brown people driving those fast cars around in circles 95 times, but I'm not going to watch on.
Nobody's going to watch it. Nobody's going to watch
not.
it.
I was just going to say, and let's be clear though, as you think about that and his particular role now, but like, he's not new to the racing arena. He used to work for the National Stock Car Association, which is like it's like the beginning piece to get to this particular stage. Tiffany, let's get you in the conversation, because we should also keep in mind one of the most highest paid drivers in the world is a brother, Lewis Hamilton, and he doesn't drive for NASCAR, he drives for Formula One.
That's just what I was about to say. I believe that he is not technically a NASCAR, but
He's not,
whatever. This position is very fraudulent. I don't believe that it's going to have any substance or any value. I don't believe it's going to change anything. These racist white people that love NASCAR are losing their mind over this Confederate flag, as are most white people in this space that we're in right now. I just think that change is always difficult for white people, and these times are extremely troubling for them. And this space is very difficult for them to navigate through, especially the racist ones, because they don't know what to do with all their racism. So this is not the only time that we've seen a noose. They were lynching in California, lynching in Texas. They put nooses around Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery's picture. So the pushback that we're receiving at this point is swift, is fast, is deep, is cutting, and it's not going to stop. So regardless of what this run's going to do for diversity, there are other drivers that are giving him problems. This had to have been hung by someone that was affiliated with NASCAR. It wasn't like a fan came in and hung the noose on the garage. This was someone actually in the league, whether it was a driver or someone in a pit crew. So
let's be clear. Wait, they've recently said, or they did all the investigation, and they said that it actually wasn't a noose, and B, it's been there for over a year. It was there in that stall for over a year before he even started parking his car there. That there was no way that anyone would know that a year later his car would be parked there, that it was left by a janitor a year ago, allegedly.
And I'm sure that is a great story that 45's FBI can tell. I don't believe it.
Riley, let's get you in. I'm curious your thought before we move on to our next topic.
Okay, well, first of all, as a side note, did you see the picture of the noose? It was a noose. There's no reason to tie anything you just don't tie things like that for any reason.
For the garage door.
You guys have to understand, we are living in the world and the era of cancel culture. So every business that has had a problematic background, a semi-racist or any racist adjacent or a demographic of racist people is trying to get on the right side of history right now. Let me get in front of it before we get canceled. Let's create a job that is basically bullshit. But let me create it so that we at least are in front of the problem, so no one can say NASCAR is racist. You can say NASCAR has racist fans, but they want to be sure that they are very clear so that they are not canceled. I'm not saying that they are racist. I know nothing about NASCAR at all, and I don't really care. I think Bubba's cute, but anyway, I don't really care about NASCAR. But it is, there are a lot, you see this happening with a lot of organizations and a lot of businesses right now that are trying to make sure they are very clear which side they stand on, whether it's for the reason of what they truly believe or whether it's because they don't want to be canceled is up for debate. But the biggest thing right now is they're in the business of making money. And if they are canceled, they won't be making money, you know?
Yeah, and I know we got to move on to this next topic. And Riley, I think to that point, my question will be, and what remains to be seen is, are they concerned about the economic impact of losing sponsors should they continue to embrace the same culture and behavior, which is what we've seen happen in a variety of industries. So you're spot on, Riley. In that same vein, but flipping it in a different direction, over what seems to be a growing trend, let's make it up to Black folks. You know, some people are applauding the possible release of Bill Cosby from a Pennsylvania prison. Somebody said, y'all just crazy. Y'all are condemning victims and upholding a damn serial rapist. But at the same time frame, the amazing actor, entrepreneur who's done so much for our community, one Twitter user wrote. So I'm wondering, do you think he should get a get out of jail free card, given all this happened, all this been said, all the things that are going on? Some people are advocating that we should free Bill Cosby. What are your thoughts? Who wants to start? Because all of y'all are looking like.
I have a question because I didn't know. I have not heard this at all. Did you say they're thinking about letting him out? Is that what you were saying? I want to be clear.
Yeah, some people are making the case that Bill Cosby should be released early.
Some shit just doesn't make any sense. It really just doesn't. Let's just call things what they are. Just because if we're gonna let him out for just because he's Black, let's let everybody else in the prison system that have gone to prison for stupid crimes that aren't even legal anymore, that aren't even illegal anymore. People that have gone to prison for, marijuana charges that were drug charges or whatever. But just because we're trying, might be trying to give some form of reparations, doesn't, there's some Black people that have done some problematic stuff and that have done some criminal stuff that deserve to be behind bars. We're not just gonna start releasing criminals just because they're Black. That doesn't make any damn sense. Who are you making it up to?
Hey, we just need to bring it up because, of course, Twitter is going back and forth in this conversation. Bello, you were going to say something, so go ahead. It's America's dad, or one is America's dad.
No, Cliff was America's dad, not Bill Cosby. Cliff was.
I'm gonna just make it.
I said correctly.
All I know is that Bill Cosby, I think when he was in an interview or maybe when he was being interrogated by the police, he was trying to normalize the raping because he said that, back in those days, it was like a normal thing to do. You just roof a woman, take her back to your place and do what you want.
Spanish fly was the thing that all boys from age 11 on up to death, we will still be searching for Spanish fly. That's right. And what was the old story was, if you took a little drop, it was on the head of a pin. That's right. And drop you put it in a Coca-Cola. Don't matter. It doesn't make it, and the girl would drink it, and she's yours. Hello, America.
Soon as I heard that, I immediately told myself, yeah, you need to go to jail forever because that's insane. I don't think exactly what Riley said. If we let him out, we might as well let every single Black rapist out at this point because what's the point anymore? I don't think they should let him out. I think he might be honestly suffering from some sort of mental problem at this case. And that's just a darn shame because I used to watch this guy's TV show all the time when I was young. And to hear those allegations come out.
When you were young.
y'all just gonna keep bringing up my age this entire show, huh?
You brought it up. You brought it. I'm sorry to interrupt. When I was young. When was that?
Really, Shaina?
hey, guy. Hey.
Shaina,
I still love you, Shaina. I still love you, Shaina.
I'm curious what your perspective is about this with Bill Cosby.
It's funny because I was just thinking about what Bella was saying, how Bill kind of normalized it and said that kind of was the thing to do. I was listening to probably one of my favorite rap songs the other day. I like Lil Wayne's Uproar because it's so good. Like his flow and that is so good. But I realized for the first time, he says, if she's iffy, there the drugs go. Like if she's iffy and I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to hit it, I need to drug her up. And it was the weirdest thing because that's the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, Bill Cosby. And now you got a current now rapper saying it, basically saying it's okay. This is how we're gonna drug women and rape them.
Well, and
so I don't even.
But you know, in that same vein, Cardi B came under fire not too long ago because she had publicly stated that this isn't supposed or allegedly. She said on tape, yeah, I used to do that and I would take their money. Like she didn't rape the guys, but she drugged them and then robbed them.
I had to go straight. I had to go, oh yeah, you want to yeah, let's go to this hotel. And I drugged up and I robbed them. That's what I used to do.
But for Bill Cosby, go ahead.
He actually did it though. Bill actually did it.
Yeah, they actually did it and they were robbing people. But for Bill Cosby, I mean, the craziest thing about it is I think they're talking about starting to let out, because of COVID-19, they want to start releasing a lot of different people who are in prison and in jail who they think are not harmful to the public. He just happens to be a celebrity that we see. He's so not, that thing, first of all, I bet he can't rape nobody right now. I bet that thing don't get up. Let's talk about that.
Harvey
and
Weinstein.
He blinders at that.
Harvey Weinstein was able to commit some crimes.
Did you say
Harvey, but have you seen Bill Cosby lately, honey? Bill Cosby ain't hitting nothing. Bill Cosby ain't hitting nothing. He can't even see.
Tiffany.
Bill Cosby can't even see.
Tiffany, can you round this out with your perspective? Shaina.
Yes.
Go ahead, Tiffany. I'm sorry.
He's 80 years old. He's blind. He's not harmful to anyone. I don't see him being a threat to anyone. I don't know what clips Shaina and Bello are talking about where he acknowledged guilt, because I've never seen that personally.
He has a comedic album where he actually says that he used to put Spanish fly. Like it was part of his comedy routine.
You know what? You know anything about Spanish fly? No, tell me about it. Well, there's this girl, Crazy Mary. You put some in her drink, man. She.
And one would say there's many a truth.
There are many Richard Pryor comedy scenes that weren't necessarily true. So
a lot where he talked
whatever.
About
you could say Lil Wayne is at fault too, if that's the song that you want to reference and all that kind of stuff. Either way, whatever. COVID is a problem. He's elderly. He needs. If Roger Stone and what's his name, Paul Manafort can get out, then absolutely Bill Cosby can get out too. He's only got a year left on his sentence anyway.
He'll be dead.
Let him go. Let him avoid the COVID. Let him just go. Because there were a lot of extenuating circumstances that I believe that were related to that case that haven't really been brought to light as it relates to the oil refineries underneath the house that he was living in and the community that he was at, in terms of the purchasing of NBC, all of which makes the whole case and the whole situation extremely problematic for me personally.
Yeah, no,
I love you, Tiffany. I love you, Tiffany. But after the show, I got a bridge I want to sell you. Okay.
Oh, we'll talk. We'll talk.
Yeah.
We're gonna move on from Dr. Bill Cosby. I want to go to somebody else in the entertainment space. Many of you should be familiar with comedian B. Simone from Nick Cannon's Wild 'N Out. If you're not, you should. Absolutely hilarious. But in an interview, she says she's looking to manifest herself a man and that she refuses to date a man who's making an honest living. In other words, she refuses to date a guy who's working a 9 to 5. Specifically, she said, you're not going to understand my lifestyle because you're not going to understand why I'm up at 3 a.m., why I'm hustling, why I'm grinding, etc. Entrepreneurs should date entrepreneurs is her philosophy, and that there's a lack of understanding of the mentality when both parties are not entrepreneurs. Is she realistic, or is she limiting her dating pool? Go ahead, Shaina Taylor. Well, Riley, go ahead. We'll start with you.
Yeah. She the correction there. She didn't say she didn't want to. She didn't shame people for making an honest living. She didn't say. You said something about making an honest living. What did you say there?
And working at a 9 to 5, as opposed to an entrepreneur who kind of works all the way around the day.
Right. So this is what people don't understand. And I understand what she's saying. I don't say I feel the same way. I understand what she's saying. She's not saying that if you work a 9 to 5 that you don't make a lot of money, or that you're undateable, or that you're bad for working a 9 to 5. What she's saying is, because she is an entrepreneur and she wants to date someone who is also an entrepreneur, because their lifestyles will match. Meaning, if you work a 9 to 5, that you may not understand what she is doing up at 3 o'clock in the morning on her computer, working and doing all this stuff. She said it doesn't match her lifestyle. Nothing's wrong with a 9 to 5. She doesn't prefer to date someone who's 9 to 5. I think the only people that should have a problem with what she said is anybody that's trying to date her that happens to have a 9 to 5. You know, understand what I'm saying? So she never said, and it was so weird when everybody was going crazy over, like, oh my God, she said the people who work 9 to 5 are bad. No, there's people who make several, 6 figures and way more than that working 9 to 5 jobs. What she's saying is it's a lifestyle, and I understand what she's saying because I don't work a 9 to 5 job. So I understand that it's a lifestyle thing. And I have dated people before who had a very strict schedule, who don't understand that, I might be on a stage at, somewhere, anywhere else in the world at 12 o'clock at midnight, and our schedules don't match. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel the same sentiment as her. I could date someone who works a 9 to 5. It doesn't matter to me. But she was not saying that if you work a 9 to 5, that you are bad, or she's just saying for her, she prefers to date an entrepreneur. You date whatever you want to date, but I didn't think it was so crazy because the internet really drug her. But I'm like, none of y'all are trying to date her, so why are y'all being?
And none of them are in the pool to be considered. Shaina, you're an entrepreneur, you're a businesswoman, you're a boss, the CEO, and all that good stuff. What's your perspective on this conversation?
It's the weirdest thing, because when people speak their truth, it always seems like people get upset about it. So even if she had said something along the lines of, I will not date anyone who doesn't make XYZ. I want to date someone who is rich. What's wrong with that? There is nothing wrong with wanting something specific, especially if it's you wanting something that you also bring to the table. I cannot date someone who works a 9 to 5. It doesn't work for me because I don't work a 9 to 5. So when I say let's go, I want to be able to go, and I want to be with someone who can go. I can work and do my job from pretty much anywhere in the world. If I'm dating someone and they're working a 9 to 5, if I want to jump on a plane and go somewhere, they can't do it. That's going to be a problem over time, because they're either going to get upset with me constantly going and doing and they can't, or I'm going to get upset with having to constantly do stuff by myself. So that's not going to work out. So the schedules are going to have to match up. The capabilities are going to have to match up. So I can absolutely. And then the staying up late. I've dated people that are like, you still working? Oh, you're taking a work call? Yes, I'm going to take a work call every time it comes in. If my email goes off, I'm going to check it, because if it's a key client, this is the lifestyle. I have to be able to do my job. And if you're complaining about it because you don't understand it, because it's not your lifestyle, it's going to be a problem.
I know we got other perspectives on that. I want to make sure I get in these other topics. We said we would discuss the Aunt Jemima and Quaker Oats controversy, so I'm going to move to that. That doesn't mean your perspective is not important, Bello, and the choice is not either, Tiffany, but the descendants of the two women who portrayed the Aunt Jemima character on food packaging are expressing concerns about Quaker Oats' decision to change the imagery and brand name. We got into this a little bit last week, but the relatives of Lily and Richard and Anna Short Harrington, who are the two individuals that portrayed the character in the 20s and 30s. They spoke out about this decision by Quaker Oats and said the origins, because Quaker Oats said the origins are based on a racial stereotype, and they want to distance themselves from it. So this is part of my history, as Larnell Evans says, who's the great-grandson of Harrington. And so his perspective, obviously he's frustrated and upset. You're trying to just literally erase my great-grandma. The other thing, they're erasing the great-grandmother's history, but he also said it hurts because even though his grandmother was part of the updated version, without the maid's attire, should some aspect of the history remain in place? So Tiffany, I'm curious, as we think about this and we talked about NASCAR and what companies are doing to be more socially responsible, and that perspective varies, do you think Quaker Oats is making the right decision here? And actually, they have updated the image over time, so let's be clear. They had the original one that looked more like Hattie B. McDaniel's character, right, Butterfly McQueen, but then they did a more updated version, and now they're saying all together, we need to scrap the way the whole brand looks, not the content, because that's syrup, Shaina, you're right, that syrup is bomb, but they're saying we need to shift it all together. Do you think the company is wrong for making that decision, and these two families should pay the price for that?
It depends on the price that they're paying. Are they taking a financial loss? Is this an economic issue for them? You know, but society-wise and Black community-wise, it's been a problematic figure. It's been an issue the way it's been depicted. It was an issue when the way it was depicted before. So if the culture and we're asking society to move forward, these corporations really don't know how to do that. What we really need to be saying is we want people in C-suites. That's what we want. You know, it's
on the board.
I'm sorry.
And on the board, not just in the
yes, on the board in the high level ranking positions. And until we really get that, then fundamentally, it is what it is.
If you're up to date on this particular controversy, you know, obviously Aunt Jemima with the pancake mix and the syrup, and the same conversation around Uncle Ben's. But do you think it's wrong for the brand all of these decades later to change out the images and just discard them and say, nope, these are racial stereotypes. We've learned as a company, we're going to move forward and do something different. Can you kind of understand but where the family sits, though, and saying, wow, you're going to take my great-grandmother's image away just because now you think it's a racial stereotype? What's your perspective?
I mean, see, this is a hard one because on one hand, the company wants to get away from the racist background. On the other hand, those two women don't want their grandma's work to be in vain. And this is definitely a hard one for me. And I'm actually just getting some new facts as you were telling me, Byron. But if I were to give you a quick answer right now, I understand what the women are going through. I mean, if you're the descendant of the woman on that packaging, you want to make sure that her work is still being portrayed. But I want to ask them, like, they do understand that it's a racist image, though. Like, it's an image that portrays, like, does everyone else agree that the image portrays, I guess, Black people in a negative way? We can all agree on that.
I don't think the new one does. I don't think
I
the
haven't seen the new one.
I think the new one is fine. And also remember that the family gets royalties. So these kids probably live, and that's probably their livelihood. But I think the new ones are good.
So they do get royalties. I didn't know that.
Oh, absolutely. As long as her face is on that box, they get a check.
So if they took off the face, no more royalties.
The updated version, family gets royalties, but the original one was based on the minstrel character.
Let me look up. You guys can keep talking. I'm about to look up the new logo.
Yeah. So I think the new one looks like Claire Huxtable. I mean, like the new one looks like the everyday mom.
But see, that's the thing, Shaina. You're saying the new one. It ain't new. They changed that a long time ago. Remember?
Well, I mean, it's not the one with the Tupac. It's not the one with the Tupac bandana.
Yeah.
Earrings
on her. She has a nice curl, like roller set, and whatever. But I was a kid when they did that, so I think they realized back then that it was a problem. So they
gave us this one, with the one with the earrings. I mean, honestly, I'm looking at this.
And that one was a problem. The original one was a problem.
This one right here
wasn't a problem at the time. That's the more
new. That's the updated.
That's the new one, right? I personally don't have
updated like since the 80s. I mean, that's not updated from that. It is from the original image. It is, but
this one is the old one, right? This is the racist.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the one with the earrings, it looks pretty normal. I mean, looking at it, I wouldn't assume that there's some sort of racial like stereotype, but it looks like a regular Black woman with amazing skin, earrings, and some great hair. Other one with the Tupac joint, yeah, no, that
Isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing getting the perspective of someone who's 23 years old? Like that's amazing from what we think and how we grew up. And he's just like, she's gorgeous skin and her earrings and whatever. And then the one with the Tupac thing. That's very interesting and refreshing hearing another take on it, even though we know what it used to be.
And we're
So
gonna keep
I would garner to say that people who are Bello's age and younger probably were buying and Jemima didn't know the history of it, didn't know anything was problematic, was just saw, oh, it's a black woman on the thing and the pancakes are up.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that's all that should matter right now. That's all that should matter right now, not what happened in the past, because clearly there have been changes. So it's about what people see now. And if people walk up to the box now and don't see a slave, why change it?
Yeah, and I want my two sisters to get some money.
Trying to identify and be relevant and current in this particular day and age and make it seem as if they're making a difference. In that same vein, to keep it light, you may appreciate this. After being suspected for many years on rumors of his sexuality, the confirmation may have just been made. And SpongeBob SquarePants gay? Nickelodeon tweeted this photo in support of Pride Month and the LGBTQ plus community with the character in rainbow attire, but without actually saying it outright. And the tweet said, celebrating #Pride with the community and their allies this month and every month. Now, parents already have to inform their kids on these mutated subjects of a younger and younger age these days. Is the SpongeBob SquarePants demographics ready for him to come out of that underwater closet?
They already knew he was gay, period.
Oh!
They already
So SpongeBob is gay. It's definitely.
I knew. And this is coming from a millennial that watched that show since he was young. I knew he was gay like since 3rd grade. Every one of my friends knew he was gay. And we accepted him just the way he was. So this is nothing new. This is nothing new at all. I still laugh at his show. I still love the character, all the people in the show. I don't know if any of y'all watch the show. I don't watch it anymore, but I still loved him and everything about it. Nothing's changed. I don't think so.
I just know that a straight guy is not going to live in a pineapple under the sea with such a well-decorated apartment. It's not going to happen. He's a sponge.
He's not even human. He's not even like.
He's a guy.
His gender is probably not even identified because he's not even human. So technically, we can't even say.
He's non-gender conforming.
Exactly.
Tiffany, you got a thought about SpongeBob and his Pride attire that has now debuted for official International Pride Month?
I think it's okay. I mean, I do wonder how old the conversation has to be for the children. I do question, and I wonder what as a parent, well, I'm not particularly a parent, but if someone was a parent, what they would say to their child and how they enter into that dynamic in that conversation.
Yeah, and that's the big question a lot of people are having. Like, how do you actually have that conversation?
Yeah, how do you have it? Because the child could be 3, 5.
But the other thing is, we see pride displayed in a whole host of ways in this day and age, and it's not just a particular character. So I'm curious, Riley, we'll give you the final thought on this particular segment as we think about SpongeBob, who has now debuted a pride attire for this particular month specifically.
Well, first of all, I've never seen one episode of the show. I know nothing about it, number one. Number two, the creators did say that he was an ally, and they never confirmed that he was gay. Whether he's gay or not, I'm with Bello. He's a sponge, so I don't really care. But to Tiffany's point, or to respond to Tiffany's point, I guess, the whole conversation about, like, at what age do you talk to your kid about, gay and all this stuff. Well, what world does your kid live in, first of all? Because telling your kid about gay people isn't going to make your kid gay, number one. Number two, your kid is going to live in a world where there are gay and transgender and lesbian and gender non-binary people all over. So it's like, if you're talking to them about there being people who love the opposite sex, then you probably should be talking to them about the fact that there are people who love the same sex, so that when they actually find out about it, it's not a shock, and it's not like, it's not something that's taboo. It's just a part of what the world is right now.
Very well said. Very well said. The other thing I want to go to this other question that came up as we're talking about LGBTQ plus issues in this particular month, and it is Pride Month. Happy Pride Month. I don't think we've actually addressed that formally as the show. So happy Pride Month, everybody. Raven, who's a former contestant on RuPaul's Drag Race, was called out on social media by another former contestant. Tyra Sanchez is the other contestant. Tyra said that on a dating app, Raven listed his interest that he was not into chocolate or rice. Would you consider that a racist comment, or is that simply expressing your personal preference? So again, let me clarify for you. So Raven, who was on RuPaul's Drag Race, posted this particular comment and said, I'm not interested in chocolate or rice. So is that a racist comment? Because Tyra truly...
Okay, wait. Did you say rice?
Yes, rice, R-I-C-E.
That's racist.
Okay, so that eliminates Asians and Hispanics.
Well, chocolate would eliminate black.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's racist. No,
I'm trying to think of who's left. I'm trying to see who does Raven like? What's left? That's it.
Right.
Because it was kind of so Raven is a little tricky. I like Raven, but that was kind of like a double entendre with the rice joint, because people automatically think Asians, but it's Spanish people too, because they eat a lot of rice.
Yeah, but sometimes when people are called rice queens, it means they like people who are, the term rice queen, which I'm not saying it's a good term, means that you like Asian boys. When you're a gay person, it means that you like Asian boys. I think it's absolutely a racist statement to make. Now, whether it's your preference that you don't want to date, that you prefer, that's one thing. But to those actual words, chocolate and rice, that's where the racist term comes in. It's not about you having a preference of who you want to date. You can date whoever you want to date and not date who you want to date, But the racism comes in the actual words, rice, instead of just saying Asian or black people, which I don't know how you put that on. I think even then she probably was thinking that she was putting it in a more delicate way than having to blatantly say I'm not into African American people or black people and I'm not into Asian people, which even sounds worse,
And I'm gonna tell you what's fascinating about this.
In that instance, you don't even say anything. I think you just don't click on people who are of the race that you don't like. You don't.
Well, no. Because people are particular, because they'll say must have an athletic build, and that's not body shaming. It's just that's what their preference is.
Shaina, that is not the same as saying I don't like dating black people. Or I don't like dating Asian people. If you don't, then just don't swipe on those people, but don't put it in your bio. That doesn't make any sense. Because then it's gonna come off racist anyway.
That's true. It does come off racist, but honestly, like, she did not have to say rice and chocolate. I'm perfectly fine. I always tell people it's perfectly fine to discriminate in dating, because at the same time, you just can't help what you're attracted to. Like black guys or white guys, you can honestly say that, because that's perfectly fine. That's just not your bag. But again, Raven did not need to say chocolate and rice, because that is supreme racism. I honestly would have preferred her just to say, I do not want to date African-American males, nor do I want to date Asian men or Latin men or whatever. Her saying rice and chocolate, that's just out of pocket. That's disgusting.
But I don't know. I think
she could have just said, I like fair. She could have said, like people always say tall, dark, and handsome.
Riley said something earlier about in the community that particular language is used, and people identify and understand exactly what is meant by that without doing a full-fledged explanation. And if you are on an app and you're trying to be short and brief and concise and to the point, the question I would also ask is that accepted in the community? Because it sounds like it is. Like, people quickly say, no, I don't do vanilla. Or, yeah, I do chocolate. Isn't that, it's a preference. But I agree, Riley, but the expression it's whether the intention was to be racist or not, it is definitely a racist label to be placed and used that way. Tiffany, we left you out of this. I'm sorry. So let's give you the final word on this particular segment before we go.
I agree with everyone who's already spoken. The issue isn't having a preference. Everyone has a preference with who they like to date, who they like to spend time with, who they want to be with, especially long term. And I understand that, but language and context mean a lot. And I'm sure that she had more characters that she could have articulated her feelings better than that.
We're going to leave that right there. So let's go full circle with another post from Facebook before we close out tonight. A man wrote, my daughter Avery and I were in Athens yesterday, and she had to go to the bathroom really bad. We went into a Subway sandwich shop. We ran straight to the bathroom, and an employee told me the bathroom was only for paying customers. We've all probably heard that before. I said, I'm sorry, but I don't have my wallet with me. He said we had to leave. Without hesitation, 2 young men spoke up and said that they would buy a cookie for Avery so she could be a paying customer and use the restroom. I was so grateful, thanked them profusely, and dashed in the restroom with Avery. When we came out, they were still there, so I thanked them again, and we started talking. We had a great conversation and exchanged some laughs. To some, it may seem like a small act, but I was so thankful and impressed that these young men, who without hesitation decided to help us out. The world needs more of this. So thank you to Latavius and Jalen, fine young men who ask for nothing in return, great examples, and a much needed ray of sunshine. So I wanted to share that with you, give you a second to also think about what your final thought is for the night. I mean, there are good signs and good deeds that people are doing that go unnoticed. So this is one example. Latavius and Jalen, thanks for doing that. Let's go around and do our final thought for the week before we close out the show.
It's always great to see people who were raised right. So it's what's needed to make this world a better place. So I think that just reminds us all how important it is that even some people who have kids and some people who don't, we all have the opportunity on a daily basis to coach and train and encourage a young person or an older person how to do things the right way, to just learn and be different. So I'm gonna take that away, and I'm gonna pass that along.
Outstanding. Tiffany Thomas, what's your thought for the week? What's your closing idea?
I think that my final thoughts is that the value of staying engaged across the board, politically, socially, economically, as we deal with what we want to do as it pertains to police legislation and where we go moving forward with that. I just want everybody to understand. And specifically as it relates to African Americans who are saying that they're going to hold the vote away from Joe Biden, I believe that that is going to be problematic, and I wish that they would reassess that thought.
Okay, on the political front. Riley, what's your final thought this week?
Yeah, I it's funny. I actually agree with her, because I feel like a vote that's not for Joe Biden is for, no matter how it just is. But I also, there's so much value in kindness and so much value and it takes really like nothing and hardly any effort to extend kindness, but the person who receives it always remembers it more than the person and it sticks in their brain. And I think I said this a couple weeks ago, this new generation that's coming up, they're not standing for all the BS that happened in the past. They're marching, they're doing so much, and it makes me so proud, because it lets me know that our country is going to be in good hands going forward. And they're just not putting up with that. So I think that story that you said about the people in Subway, it is great to see that. And it's just what I said, that new generation is just, they're just amazing. And I love seeing that. And I can't wait to see what they do next. And not that I'm not a part of that generation. I'm not, but it just, the world just needs more love and more kindness. We've been saying this for forever, but more than ever now we need it, because it's just, that's what's wrong with the world right now. It just all boils down to unkind people and people who do not love.
Very well said. And Bello, we thank you for joining us tonight. Curious what your final thought is for the show.
So first off, I just want to say thank you guys so much for letting me be part of this. I think this is an amazing show, and it's an amazing space filled with very intelligent Black people, and I just love seeing Black intellectuals talk and discuss. So thank you so much for letting me be a part of it. Number two, I think what happened at Subway was pretty amazing. I think that's just one of the small things about humanity that go overlooked a lot, that can definitely reinstate people's confidence in our species. Although I will say, one time I went to Subway and I needed to use the bathroom. They told my Black ass to get the hell out. But I mean, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Nobody came to my aid. That's fine. I don't know if I can curse or not, but I'm sorry I had to let that one off, because that was kind of building up all those years. But yeah, props to the two people who got to use the bathroom, and I think it's pretty amazing that when you least expect it, humanity can really surprise you with amazing acts of kindness. So yeah, thank you guys for letting me be part of this. I think it's
No, thank you, and that's so true. For folks who are watching on YouTube, as always, we ask that you ensure that you ring the notifications, that you set that so that you know when we're on and what's being posted. Also, like and share. We love when our viewers extend this to friends, families, colleagues, and those who need additional great content. Again, you can find us on YouTube at We Speak _ the talk show. And if I were to offer a final thought for the week, it would be this: if the mind can conceive it and the heart can believe it, then the hands can achieve it, because it all begins in the mind. And as always, we thank you for watching and ask that you join us again when next we speak.